Dr. S.R.Keshava sir. He is a distinguished senior professor of economics at Bangalore University, a prolific scholar. He has authored 9 books and published over 120 research articles in reputed journals. He has guided more than 6 postdoctoral researchers and evaluated more than 200 PhD theses, reflecting his deep engagement with academic excellence. Since 2023, he has been serving as a head Department of Economics, Bangalore University, contributing significantly to teaching, research, and institutional development. We welcome you, sir.
One more thing, just Professor Keshava is the recipient of President Award for Economics. We are proud of having such person with us.
Definitely, sir.
Yeah, Professor Keshava sir. Now you carry on.
Yeah, thank you, dear friend Arunachal, for that.
Highly encouraging to hear that words. So Keshava sir was the examiner in my PhD work. And Dr.
Yeah, happy to see you here. Yeah, all respected dignitaries, invitees, and participants. Happy to be part of this versatile knowledge foundations initiative, as well as Arunachalam's initiative of Sri Narendra Modiji Education Services and Research Center, as well as the Innovation Council of Exquisite Education and Development Skill Kerala. Tulsi Barunda Madam is also there, and Madan sir is there, and many good number of my friends, and of course Krishna Kumar, Arunachalam, Aliyar, and all are visible to me. So very happy to share few of my thoughts. Few of it may collide with what Madanji was telling. So only I was telling, I fully agree with what he is telling. When we are speaking of the expectations of this budget, always it will be a dil mange more. Because we expect that, let the government do this for us, this for us. But, what are the situations which are prevailing right now? Is it feasible to do all that is the number one thing that which all as a student of economics should understand. Because, every budget when written is not just about the numbers. It's about the people's aspirations, people's expectations. But when we also speak in the context in which the budget is written, also is important. So in that context, let me try to understand what is the volatile and the fragmented global economy right now, and what about this resilient but even uneven domestic economy, and our own national ambition of Viksit Bharat 2047. So this, though, is a long-term one. So our budget expectations probably should be focused on all these 3 major issues, so that we can be a little realistic in understanding what the government may do. First important thing is look at the external environment. Right now, the world is in transition and tension. I keep on telling this, after the Trump's trumpet has begun, there is so much of uncertainty all over the world. And we cannot predict, what will happen in the next week or probably even next day, if the things continue in the same speed. Geopolitics and the trade wars influence will also be there on the budget, because the way in which this renewed tariff wars is happening, because recently the statements of Trump that is saying he no longer had to maintain peace because he's not given the Nobel. Look at the way the arrogance is coming from his side. So this important issue, now what will happen if the Europe also, in the written, put the tariffs. All these things India should clearly watch. And, other than that, the impact of the tariffs on India, because it is right now, US is telling, Trump is telling, let me be very clear on it, Donald Trump is telling, if you have any trade relations with Iran, then another 25% of tariff will be imposed on whatever tariff already I have imposed on you. So these are the issues that which India will be looking at. And so how to offset that particular thing, also will be definitely there in the budget, is my expectations. And for India, when we speak of this, because export uncertainty is so much. Recently, you saw, what is happening with basmati prices. We are unable to export it to Iran, and that is the reason that why our farmers as well as traders are suffering now. And the huge amount of basmati rice are there in the containers in the ports without getting exported. So all these are the issues that which we should take into consideration. And export uncertainty in the engineering goods, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, electronics, and even on the agricultural goods. But of course, this also provides us an opportunity. I'm not saying it's only a threat perception. It is, of course, a threat, but it also creates an opportunity, because we can also position ourselves into America plus one. And all this we were thinking about China plus one. Now we can think of the other partners, right? Other trade partners where we can consolidate our trade, because this is a crucial time that where India is strongly withstood the pressures of US, and probably the budget will put a strong foundation again for that to say this is what we are. And the logic of this is making India a manufacturing partner in this divided world. How exactly the BRIC nations can come together, that also matters. But from our side, in the budget, how exactly we will be doing the reforms on the major sectors so that India will strengthen its stance on what neutrality, which it is speaking of in the world, will stand for. This budget must therefore signal for export competitiveness, faster logistics, trade facilitation, stable tariff policy. If at all, if you see, what Europe is right now doing, Europe is telling its exporters, right, we will help you, right? We will help you to offset what Trump tariff is doing. So that kind of initiatives I'm expecting in our budget also. And the second important thing, that when we are speaking of the global protectionism and strategic autonomy also matters now, because across the US, Europe, and the parts of Asia, now there is an external force. The rise of protectionism is there. Good, thanks to the Modiji government, after COVID, they spoke, they are taking these steps towards the Atmanirbhar Bharat. That was a very good move. And right now, the entire world, if at all, if you see the US, it is already doing it. Europe also is now slowly picking up with that. It's a rise of protectionism in that. So in that case, even China also said, no, will not be exporting silver for another few months. So each and every nation is having its own strategic policy, and hence there is a rise of protectionism. So what should be done now? It should be reframe the industrial policy. So industrial policy, how exactly we will be looking at it? So can we give a little more subsidies to our industries? Or because tariffs are back, and how to protect our industries, and those export-led industries can be given little more incentives, or it can be, the tax customs can be cut on those export commodities. So all these are the issues that which play a very important role, that which I'm expecting in this budget. And of course, let us not forget, national security is also shaping the trade, and India should also think of how exactly, because US has increased its defense budget, China has increased its defense budget, and probably in this budget, India also should increase it, and that should be carefully planning it also. And, it means for us, we should be giving the stronger emphasis on Make in India, production-linked incentive schemes, selective tariff protection, as well as domestic capacity in semiconductors, defense, EVs, and electronics, because these are all crucial strategical points that which India has to look into, and hope that this will be there in the budget. And India must also avoid becoming a high tariff, low competitiveness economy also, because very carefully it should be positioning it, and no longer we are speaking of the WTO regulations, because Trump regulation has come off now. I recently was telling in one of the discussions, Trump has become like, Indian mythology is Bhasmasura. He's trying to, trying to destroy the other economies, but ultimately he will also be destroyed. But till then, how exactly we should be taking care of the Indian economy is the one important thing that this budget should be aiming at. And when we are speaking of the global oil prices and energy transition, so that also is another important thing, because almost 80% of our crude oil we import. And in such case, when the dollar price, what's happening with that also we are knowing. And in that situation, how exactly India should cater to that. If at all, if it moderates somewhere between the $50 to $60 per barrel is what the expectations is. But, if the Iran crisis further deepens, then, it may increase further. So all these issues are always there. So how exactly we can look at these oil prices, how exactly we can plan with the estimation of, say, there should be some two scenarios, at least 50 to 60 per barrel or 60 to 75 per barrel per dollar. So how exactly we'll be doing it? So then in case if that is the case, then how exactly we should be planning in this budget also should be an important thing. And thereby we should see, what will be its impact on inflation, and how much should be our subsidy. And there should also be a fiscal space for the infrastructure, green transition, social spending. So all these should also be there. So, and, probably this budget 26-27 should also introduce something like green sovereign wealth window, wherein we are speaking of trying to reduce our carbon emissions, because it's a net zero commitment of India by 2070, but still, the planning of that should also be clearly visible in this present budget also. Already it has been done, because we are already, incentivizing the EV towards the EV transition, green hydrogen, and the energy security. So that also can be taken care. And the another important aspect is about the looking at the global monetary policy, how exactly the external forces may impact the Indian economy. And say, for example, US Federal Reserve policy is now trying to increase the interest rates over there, or all of a sudden it may take a U-turn and say, no, we'll reduce our interest rate. So both impact, we should be ready. So these are the things. And because, rupee stability depends on that also. And bond yields and the cost of the government borrowings, because if we go for it, what exactly will be the cost of the government borrowings? So because the rupee value is declining. So all these factors should be taken into consideration. So, okay, this is about the international arena. Now let me look at the macroeconomic situation within the country. As per NSO first advance estimate, we are seeing that the real GDP growth estimated is around 7.4%, and the nominal GDP growth may be around 8%. Really, it's, we are again and again proving that the macroeconomic fundamentals of this country is very strong. And so this is one positive thing that which we can take forward in this budget, though the external sector is not favoring India to that extent. But of course, always threat also brings in the opportunity. And here in this case, right, when we are speaking of the nominal GDP growth at 8% and the real GDA growth of almost 7.3%. And of course, another positive thing which the NSO, the estimates are telling, which has been released on the 7th January 2026, is that the private consumption growth is also 7% and the investment growth is also 7.8%. So this is giving us the positive vibe, because the service sector, which is the engine of the growth now, is also expected to grow in this year, in this financial year, to a very greater extent, because the financial, real estate, and professional services is expected to grow. Initial estimates are telling that it is expected to grow at 9.9%. Then the public administration and defense and all is growing around 9.9%. Manufacturing and construction around 7%. Agriculture is one thing, right? But still it is growing at 3.1%. So the plan should be such that, strengthen the Atmanirbharata in the agriculture, so that the growth will be minimum of 4% in the agriculture. And, the demand also, when we speak of the private consumption share of the GDP, is around 56.3%. It is what the NSO data is telling us. The investment share is 33.8%. The export share is 21.4%. So with this background, right, and of course, even when we are speaking of the inflation, it has been moderated. Unemployment has declined to around 4.7%. Forex reserves are still strong. Exports are growing, but very unevenly because of this tariffs. So with this background, probably what can we expect from this budget? Even the most important thing at this, whenever there is a crisis externally, the one thing that which always the government of India has tried to do, and which we should continue to do, is increase our public capital expenditure. That should be a minimum of around 12 to 13 trillion rupees. That's what I'm expecting, that it should be around 12 to 13 trillion rupees in this budget. And then, already we are focusing on the transport corridors, and probably it should be given major boost, because, CapEx will always focus on transport corridors, Gati Shakti logistics, railways, defense, urban infrastructure, digital public infrastructure. So it should be given further major boost over here. And probably we should also, I also strongly believe that we should also introduce the National Infrastructure Performance Index, wherein the future budget allocation should be based on the completion speed, cost discipline, private investment crowding in, so that we will be telling at what time it will be completed, and it will be very clear. Many of the infrastructure projects which we are seeing, except the national highways, many of them. Others, even in the states, we have been seeing it going at a very slower pace. In case if the central government clearly mentions this National Infrastructure Performance Index, probably it will show the way for even the state governments also, that the budget can think of. And this also brings, the performance-based budgeting into infrastructure. That is one thing that which probably the government in this budget can look into. And when we are speaking of this, the India's growth momentum also will increase, because it depends definitely on the government's ability to sustain the large-scale infrastructure spending. So that is very crucial at this juncture. And so, as I was mentioning, a capital outlay in the range of around 12 to 13 trillion rupees is what I personally expect, so that it will bring in a lot of transport corridors, even in the railways, even in the defense manufacturing, urban infrastructure, digital public infrastructure. So all this is what I'm just looking into. And, that there is a room for that also. And that is what it is demanding right now also. And when we speak of taxation and the middle class taxation and the middle class relief, that is what is expected. And of course, government has given us more than what we expected in the last budget. Definitely, up to 12.75 lakhs, the organized sector salaried people need not have to pay the tax right now. Probably there will be some minor, I cannot expect much more again. But of course, there is a room for the minor slab rationalization between the 12 lakh to 20 lakh. Always we expect, let the middle class get more. But already it has done in the last budget. So little tinkering or the slab rationalization between the 12 and 20 lakhs can be expected in this budget. And the standard deduction can be raised up to 1 lakh rupees. And a little of higher Section 80D limits can be done. And of course, senior citizens relief has to be given, because that is there, that demand is there from the senior citizens from also. And it is also a feasible idea that can be given. And because the health expenses of them also has increased, and if at all, if they get little relief, and that will be compensated from there. So, and can we think of something of a consumption-linked tax credit, where spending on education, health, green housing, so that also may help us, right? That may also help us to link the taxation with the desired consumption behavior. So this is what I'm just expecting, because beyond this conventional tax relief, there is always a growing intellectual expectations that taxation policy should be used more strategically to shape the economic behavior also. When I'm speaking of using the taxes to shape the economic behavior, this, it's very clear that tax incentives should be linked on spending on health insurance, higher education, green housing, or retirement savings. So this probably, it will stimulate the demand also and promote the long-term and social objectives too. So that is the reason that why I strongly felt that the taxation should be linked with the desired consumption behavior. So that makes something, some sensible point over there. So that's what I strongly believe in. And when we're speaking of the third important segment is about the manufacturing and make in India. So that also is very crucial now. The expectations of the because manufacturing remains central to India's medium-term growth and employment strategy. And budget 26-27 is expected to reinforce this priority, because right now this is very crucial. And right now we are very happy that India is a service-led economy. Unless and until this manufacturing sector is strengthened, you cannot create more jobs. And moreover, with AI in our AI almost there everywhere. And the proper manufacturing sector, utilizing it and creating more employment through it also matters a lot now. So industry is probably will be looking for custom duty rationalization, reduction in tariff complexity, then faster input tax credit refunds, and protection against dumping from China. That is already happening. And in the sectors such as steel, chemicals, and electronics. So that should be looked at very seriously. However, the deeper expectation is that the protection will be accompanied by a strong push towards the competitiveness also. So that also is what I'm expecting at. And a large key expectation can be for the creation of more stable and predictable tax regime that encourages the MNCs to integrate into India's global supply, integrate India into the global supply chains. So that is also very important. And it includes simplified custom procedures, faster clearances, reduction in trade litigation at a conceptual, and more importantly, when we are speaking of this, the idea of globally competitive manufacturing clusters also is very crucial, with the world-class infrastructure, regulatory stability, integration with export markets, allowing the India to move beyond assembly operations and higher value added manufacturing. So in case if we can do that, then manufacturing sector also will definitely get the respite. And with reference to the infrastructure efficiency, that is also very crucial. Already we know that in the logistic sectors, expectations are not limited to just higher spending, but focus on the efficiency, integration, and digitalization. Because the Prime Minister Gati Shakti framework already, which is already there, the industry expects a deeper coordination between the road, rail, ports, airports, and multimodal hubs, which should be supported by the unified digital platforms that allow the real-time tracking and the paperless movement of the goods. And last year we were spending around 3.1% of the GDP on the capex, which we already discussed, around 11.21 lakh crores, and this should be increased, right? This should be increased to 13 to 14 lakh crores, that is around 13 to 14 trillion rupees. So then we can expect another boost to the India's growth economy, which will be sustained over the years. And we should also lower this logistics cost from the current 30 to 14% of the GDP closer to the global benchmark of around 8 to 9%. India can significantly enhance the export competitiveness and MSME participation in the global value chains. So this also should be looked into. And when we speak of the electric vehicles and green transition, so that the expectation is fix the inverted GST structure. Then there should be a uniform 5% GST on all the EV components and the charging infrastructure. Of course, GST Council will decide on this. But the expectations, at least in the budget, there will be some, clue to say that, that reforms is also there on that. And they can also launch a national battery leasing mission where the government builds the battery pools. Firms leased instead of owning the batteries. Firms leased instead of owning the batteries, so that it will reduce the EV cost and there will be acceleration, adoption. So all this can be, it was what expected there. And industry is also looking for custom duty rationalization, reduction in tariff complexity, faster input tax credit refunds, and the protection against dumping from China. As I was already telling you, especially the steel, chemicals, and electronics. And so these are the crucial things over there. And in case of the healthcare and biotechnology, the expectations is higher R&D funding, public-private partnership, and so the new thinking is to create the health innovation sovereign fund to co-invest with the startups in the genomics or AI diagnostics and preventive healthcare. So all this can be done so that in the healthcare, the expectations will be generally beyond this traditional hospital funding. So probably if we go with the genomics and multimoxic and and the AI-based diagnostics emerging as a frontier technologies, the sector can expect the higher public investment in the research innovation, public-private partnership. So that will definitely help the India for a strategic growth development. And health also plays a very crucial in that, because whenever we have invested in the health innovation ecosystems, India can reduce the long-term disease burden. That also helps us in reducing the long-term disease burden, lower the healthcare cost, and build a globally competitive biotechnology industry. And in case of the real estate and urban development, the expectations will be to introduce the tradable green building credits also. So probably little more expectations. Of course, you can definitely, as I was telling you, they'll mange more, and if it will be there, and it should be good, where green certified builders earn credits tradable in the financial markets. So that's a good move probably in case if the government can do it. So this will bring the market incentives into sustainability. And so more fundamentally, the expectations, will be to treat cities as an economic growth engines and not merely as an administrative units. So this can include an integrated urban transport, climate resilient infrastructure, and municipal finance reforms that will strengthen the city level capacity to plan and execute long-term development projects. So without, of course, on agriculture with reference to the workforce. So when we're speaking of the expectations will be, oilseed and pulse self-reliance, post-harvest infrastructure, which in the Atmanirbhar Bharat also there are the initiatives which can be strengthened in this budget. And then the climate smart farming initiatives which can be announced here. And farmer producing organizations can be strengthened. And then there can also create a climate risk insurance grid where the satellite data, weather data, crop data automatically, payouts, that can be done. It triggered the payouts without the claims. So that can be done. And income support and MSP should continue. And the dominant expectations will be the highest spending on irrigations, post-harvest infrastructure, storage, processing, and climate-smart technologies. And another important thing is there is also the growing expectations that this budget will accelerate the transformation of Indian agriculture from a subsistence-oriented sector into commercial technology-enabled climate-resilient system. And digital agriculture, FPO strengthening, women farmer institutions, and risk-based crop insurance are increasingly seen as an essential components of food security and rural prosperity, and the budget can look into all those, is expected to look into those areas. And when we are speaking of the digital economy and AI, this, not though explicitly highlighted, this is emerging. And all of us know this, and all of us are also feeling it already. And so there can be a national AI public infrastructure to build the public data sets, open models. AI can compute access for the MSME and startups. So this emerging area of expectations, often not explicit, but very important, feeling it already. And so there can be a national AI public infrastructure to build the public data sets, open models. AI can compute access for the MSME and startups. So this emerging area of expectations, often not explicit, but very important, as I was telling you. And the most important thing is how exactly to initiate the public investment in the AI infrastructure, open data sets, and computing the access for startups, MSMEs, and research institutions. So because these are all very crucial, and the expectations is that the government will ensure that AI becomes a public good rather than a private monopoly, so that it enables the broad-based innovation and prevent excessive concentration of technological power. And so this is, of course, not a crisis budget, but very cautious one. India is not firefighting, but being cautious. India should calibrate towards the long-term strategy. So this is a transition budget in that way, and it should be towards from consumption to investment, from subsidies to infrastructure, from protection to competitiveness, and from growth to sustainability. So this basically is in bridge budget, is what I feel, a bridge budget between the short-term stabilization and the long-term Vikasit Bharat at 2047, which should absorb the global shock, revive private demand, strengthen the manufacturing, secure the food systems, and accelerate the green transition, and deepen the India's place in the global economy. This is what I am honestly expecting from the forthcoming budget of the central government. And I thank my good friend Arunachalam and his team for this wonderful opportunity to share a few of my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Keshava, for our excellent, description about what you are expecting from the government. Dear participants, now you can raise your questions to Professor Keshava.
Yes. What about our space technology? You have not mentioned anything on space technology and how much you should be the invest, because today there is a competition going on among developed nations.
Yes, sir.
I think that we have NAC accreditation, all accreditations based on the performance. If we are falling down, then we have to give B grade. If the one which was having A+, we give B grade, like that, based on the performance. Similarly, in the world, we say some are developed nations, some are developed, so recalibrate and say these are all developed once, but not now. So that kind of system should come to avoid the global calamity, the clash. And this kind of psychological problem is also there to be taken note of, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
And what about the space?
Yeah, thanks.
And what about the space investment?
Yeah, guys also allowing the private investors to invest in the even in the space also, in the space technology. And recently you saw that, ISRO also launched free of this private satellites also. So all this is right now coming. Already last budget also promoted it. Even this budget also, definitely there will be some incentive for it. And already India has initiated a lot of reforms in that also. We can expect a little more in this budget also.
Thank you, sir. Excellent, sir.
Excellent. Thank you, Professor Keshava. Thank you. And Krishna Kumar?
Thank you, sir. I record my sincere gratitude on behalf of Versatile Knowledge Foundation, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Keshava, sir. Another case, what about our Reddy, sir?